Okay, good morning. I'm Steve Hashem. I'm the Director for the Center of Knowledge and Futures, or SOKF, at US SOCOM. I was assigned there back in August of 2005. Until this past August, I was dual-hatted, also as the President of the Joint Special Operations University. So if anybody has any questions about JSOW, at the end of the panel, please feel free to ask me. I appreciate the opportunity from the Reserve Officer Association, the Peace Operations Policy Program, and the Civil Affairs Association to have this opportunity to speak to you this morning on this panel. I've been a member of Civil Affairs. I've been in Civil Affairs since 1985. In fact, same day I left active duty, I joined the reserves and I got involved with Civil Affairs. I think it's great that we're resuming these annual conferences. I hope we continue to do them in the future. I have a lot of great friends in Civil Affairs, and I think the greatest value of these conferences is the renewal of the old friendships, the camaraderie, and also the new contacts and friends that we can make at these venues. We've got a lot to be thankful for by being in the civil affairs community. It's a great community. People like, and I'm going to mention a few names here before I get into my briefing, but General Wilkie, Cal Orwitz, Jack Basil, Wendell Hodgkins, Herman Frank is not here, and General Berkman, but we owe a lot in civil affairs to their legacy and the hard work and dedication that they have had to make civil affairs what it is today. A couple of other people I'd like to recognize briefly. First individual is retired Master Sergeant George Van Sant. George, he's probably the father of enlisted civil affairs, but he's made so many more contributions to civil affairs. George, he's sitting in the back over there. When I was the commander of the 404 Civil Affairs Battalion, George was my operations officer. And one day I had to brief, there was a briefing at 353. I had to brief General Matthews, who was the 353 commander, who was also my first boss in civil affairs. He was a lieutenant colonel. General Campbell was there, he was the KPOC commander, and General Scott, who was the USASOC commander with the 3-star. Well, George put that briefing together for me, which was about civil affairs capabilities. And I ran into General Scott a couple of years ago at Harvard at an executive education session, and he still remembered that briefing. And I can tell you that I've had other people over the years that have come up to me and said that they remember that briefing, the briefing that George Van Sant put together. So, George, I want to thank you for your hard work over the years, and you're one of the big reasons, why I'm up here today. So thanks, George. Second person that I want to recognize, and really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the Civil Affairs Association, but it's Command Sergeant Major Heupel. When I was getting ready to deploy the 353 over to Iraq in the summer of 2004, my Sergeant Major wasn't able to deploy for a variety of reasons, so he retired. Let's just say he retired prematurely. Mike Woodruff, who was my Command Sergeant Major of the 2nd PSYOP group, hustled him up to Fort McCoy in Wisconsin. He was going to be my new Command Sergeant Major. Mike developed some medical problems, and unfortunately he wasn't able to go. So my next choice was Neil Heupel. Neil was the Command Sergeant Major in the 13th PSYOP Battalion up in Minnesota. Neil knew probably very few people other than me in the 353. Neil came up to Camp McCoy, and he stepped up to the challenge, and he became my Command Sergeant Major. He did an absolute fantastic job over in Iraq, and I know he'll do a great job at USAC KPOC. So thanks also, Neil, for all your help over the years. Next thing I want to say, and just one quick point, I guess when you're a 2-star and you've been in for 34 years, you can talk whatever you want to talk about. But over the last 6 months, I've had an opportunity to get into reading books more. And one of the things that we need to have in the civil affairs, on use of KPOC, and civil affairs in general, is a reading list. 2 books that I read the last 6 months I wish I had read 30 years ago. The Ugly American by William Lederer. I think it was written in the 50s. They made a movie. Marlon Brando starred in the movie. But it explains a lot of the reasons why we're in the situation we're in a lot of countries overseas. Second book is A Bell for Adana. Written about a civil affairs major in World War II. John Hershey was the author. And just an incredible book. And when I see some of the folks out here in the audience, particularly some of the older people from the association, I mean, they served in World War II. They were there. They did what this major did in Italy in World War II. So I would highly recommend that you read both of those books. Next slide, please, John. All right, enough of nostalgia. I'm going to get into what Special Operations Command does, and particularly in the Doctrine area, but I just want to give you a little background. U.S. SOCOM has a little over 53,000 people. 53% of SOCOM is comprised of the U.S. Army Special Operations Command, the Rangers, Civil Affairs, PSYOP, Special Forces, approximately 26,000 folks. There's 12,000 folks in AVSOC. They're the aviation, wing, special tactics, combat controllers, PJs. There's another 6,000 in WARCOM, SEALs, special boat teams, and our newest organization, MARSOC, when it gets up to full capability, will have about 2,700 people. I think they're around 1,000 now. My good friend General Halick is the commander of MARSOC. And the last organization is JSOC, also known as National Mission Unit. And I'm not going to go any of the specifics about JSOC, but we all know they fulfill a very important role. I can tell you that Admiral Olson, the commander of SOCOM, is very, very interested in civil affairs. He was a deputy for 3 years at SOCOM before he took over SOCOM as the commander. He likes to call SOCOM the USS OCOM, based on his Navy background. But CA is one of the 9 core activities in special operations. Another person that's very interested in civil affairs is Mr. Vickers. I had a one-on-one meeting with him a couple of weeks ago. We do a lot of work, SOKF does a lot of work with Solic, and I was filling him in on what we did, or what we do. I started talking to him about SOKF about halfway through the meeting. He started asking me questions about civil affairs. And I kind of said, well, he goes, well, I noticed on your bio you have a lot of civil affairs experience. So he started asking a lot of questions about CA, about the transfer of CA and PSYOP to the big Army Reserve. He's very interested in the concept of developing a CA Center of Excellence. And we also talked about establishing a joint CMO committee. So he's interested in those 3 things. So I can tell you that at the highest levels, Mr. Vickers and Admiral Olson has a lot of interest in civil affairs and the future of civil affairs. These are where all the various headquarters are located. I'm not going to cover these. I think you're familiar with most of them. Naval Special Warfare Command, however, is out on the West Coast, Coronado, and there's been some discussion about either moving the headquarters to the East Coast or establishing part of the headquarters on the East Coast. Whether or not that happens, I'm not sure. Joint Special Operations University, they're at Probert Field, also with the Air Force Special Operations School, and AVSOC. This is the SOCOM mission. I'll give you a second to read it.